That's your area. Yeah. Started there. Yeah. That's fine. 9 to 5. I looked at it. Fingers are so oily that it makes it, I can't read my screen if I don't. Fingerprints all over it. History. History is funny. When it doesn't come to rotation, there's a guy.
October, we start in county board meeting. In October, we start in county board meeting.
Yeah, I don't know how. It's not gonna be very, good arrangement for eating and public viewing, and I don't know.
We've done it before,
We'll
though.
figure it out.
We had a tutorial in the pandemic, so we can figure it out.
Yeah.
That, right?
Yeah,
Where will the meetings be?
county boardroom.
Oh,
There's a few in the county board.
Yeah.
21st.
Oh, let's see, it'll be on Wednesday. County board.
And that's it, you know, just right.
how about infrastructure?
That'll be the same.
Okay.
Or, it'll be still, everything will be in the county boardroom.
I've just never been out to the highway department.
Oh, yeah, that'll be nice.
But I'm not natural. I'll just go visit. 8:59.
Good morning, welcome to the Land Use and Information Committee meeting for September 5th, 2023. Notice has been posted in accordance with Wisconsin Statute 19.84, open meeting law. At this time, are there any general public comments? If you have something that's on the agenda later on, you can speak at that time. Are there any general comments at this time? We have no one online that I know of. Move on. Approval of the agenda order.
Approve.
Motion by Mr. Anderson.
Second.
Mr. Payton, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Approval of the minutes from the August 1st, 2023 meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Blomberg and seconded by Mr. Payton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. At this time, we'll take final action on map 2306, Hopkins Sand and Gravel, rezoned from A2 to A1. We had a public hearing last month, and we were waiting for a letter from Town of Siren, and we have received that, right?
Nope. We have not received anything.
No, I don't notice anything either. I think it may take them a bit longer to make this decision with their plan commission.
Yeah, it's not something they can do immediately.
So, I think the motion just to dispose of the item today.
We have to leave the door open, everyone. It's an open meeting.
We can't hear back there, you're gonna have to speak up then.
Speak up.
I'll speak up. In the interest of giving the town of Siren time, I think I would make a motion to continue this until they notify us they have made a decision on this matter.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Conroy, second by Mr. Blomberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Now we'll move on to the public hearing. Jason, please read the public hearing.
Notice of public hearing, State of Wisconsin, County of Burnett, Tuesday, September fifth, 2023, at 9 a.m. at the Burnett County Government Center, room 165, Town of Meenan, Siren, Wisconsin, regarding the following Burnett County Land Use Shoreline Protection Ordinances. Number one, conditional use permit CUP 2308 Borg, public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Oakland, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Charles Borg has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use Code of Ordinances to expand the rental storage facility located at 27816 Lone Pine Road in the A2 zoning district, Lot 1, CSM, Volume 3, page 177, in the southeast quarter, the northeast quarter, Section 29, Town 40 North, Range 16 West. Number two has been withdrawn by the applicant. Number three, conditional use permit CUP 2314 Larrabee. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Oakland, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Wayne Larrabee has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances to allow a single-family dwelling in the exclusive agricultural district located at 6355 Bushy Road in the A zoning district, in the northwest quarter, the northeast quarter, Section 26, Town 40 North, Range 16 West. Number four, a conditional use permit CUP 2315 Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Webb Lake, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use Code of Ordinances to operate a 2.5 megawatt solar generation facility located at 3171 Lake 26 Road in the F1 zoning district in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter, Section 29, 21 North, Range 14 West. And number five is postponed until next month.
First one is conditional use permit CUP 2308 Borg, with the applicant in attendance.
That's you. Or? That's you.
All right, I hear you.
Please come up and state your name.
Charles Borg.
Explain what you're applying for.
A permit for 24 by 24 garage on 27816 Lone Pine Road.
Do you have any questions of the applicant?
I met with the city of Oakland on it, and we semi-resolved the issues. And I assume that they thought you'd go along with their recommendation.
I have a question. You stated, and on the permit, I mean, you said a garage, here it says a storage building, and you stated that it was rental. So I'm not sure what,
Yeah, it's a 24 by 24 garage. I added on to the storage units that I rented out. And then, I met with Oakland Township on it, and their issue is renting it out. And so we reached agreement that I would keep the building. When the existing renter is in there, leaves, I can't re-rent it to the next renter.
you have a copy of? No.
You should have
Did you
Oakland's stuff in there, yeah.
From Oakland, we have in the packet.
Yes.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Not at this time, but I reserve the right to ask him to return after we open the public hearing. Or farther back, I'm reserving the right to ask Mr. Borg to return forward after we hear testimony at the public hearing.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, even that close. I might call you back.
Okay?
Right now I don't, but after the rest of anyone else who wants to speak, speaks, then I may ask you to return if
All right.
there's something that could come up.
Okay, at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone wish to speak on this CUP 2308?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Don Hamilton, Town of Oakland. I live in Oakland, but I also chair the Oakland Land Use Planning Committee. So just for some fidelity and clarity with the Oakland decision, the building was unfortunately built without a building permit several years ago. So it hasn't been on the record. And it also, Mr. Borg expanded his commercial operation into that building without a permit. So the Oakland Land Use Planning Committee and the Oakland Town Board reviewed this application, and they are empathetic with Mr. Borg that the building is there. We would support leaving the building. I know he's pursuing an after the fact building permit, so Oakland does support that. But Oakland does not support expanding the commercial use into that shoreland residential and rural residential area. The parcel is already non-conforming for A2 size and width. The density of the lot is already way overdeveloped. There's one house, 5 garages, there's 2 large mini warehouses. And half of the small lot is wetlands. And from a zoning perspective, the CUP is incompatible with Oakland's land use comprehensive plan. Oakland does not want commercial expansion in that area. That is not where our plan calls for commercial expansion. So that's why Oakland recommended, the committee recommended and unanimously denied the commercial expansion, but supported the building remaining. And likewise with the town board voted unanimously to deny the CUP application or recommend the CUP be denied, but also supportive of the building being there. So that is, it's a little bit of a convoluted situation there, but we would recommend the committee disapprove this CUP. The building is there, he's free to use it, just not as a commercial operation. So thank you.
Any other comments? Any other comments? There's no other comments. We'll close the public hearing. And you wish to call him back up?
No, I don't think so. The question I have only is that from an enforcement perspective, how are we going to know how that building is being used from a practical point of view? We will be assessing him after the fact fee of like triple.
Yeah, he's already applied for the permit. I can't remember what we said about the fee or something.
We do have, if it's something we could have approved, charge a punitive fee to,
Yes.
as opposed to a citation.
Yep.
Benefit of that is that we get to keep the revenue then, as the court, meaning the department. That's the only issue I have.
I mean, as far as enforcement, I guess, is if somebody drives through there, as long as there's not a number 1, 2, 3, you know, on the building or something, we'll assume it's being used for personal use only, but.
Only reason I'm raising that issue is it's a difficult thing to devote staff time to, watching if somebody uses a small addition on a commercial building.
Yep.
For a non-commercial use. From a pragmatic point of view, it's a conditional use permit, get where the town's coming from, but at the same time, it would be better from our perspective of staff time invested in something like that to let it be expanded that small amount. I'm not making a motion, I'm just throwing that out there for discussion.
Who would be responsible for enforcing that?
Right here.
It's not Oakland Township, it would be us.
Mm-hmm.
If you're driving by, you're gonna know if it's his lawnmower stored in there or somebody else's.
That's where my point. I get where they're coming from, I don't disagree with their position, but I just don't want to burden our staff with something that's almost an unenforceable regulation. If it's already a commercial, an existing, conforming was approved. The town's plan is to host, this part of that as a storage facility
Except that didn't have a permit to build it to start
for
with.
that addition. That's what it is, right? Simply that addition?
Yes, it's the addition part, yep.
We'll still be able to use the old portion for rental then?
Yep.
Our only other option is to approve it, so we can rent it. That's only, that, we're not gonna make him remove the addition.
Right.
I think we've agreed that we support that as well. You know, if we wanted to make it, if we wanted to enforce it, absolutely enforce it, then we have to make him remove it.
Right.
And neither we or the town really want to do that. So I think it's either deny the conditional use and recognize that if he puts somebody else's lawnmower in there, that's a violation. Or we just say, okay, we'll bite the bullet, we don't like approving this, and he got away with it, but then we don't have to deal with it as a potential violation. And I'm being cynical a little bit, I admit that, but just trying to say that it seems, that it's a rule that we really can't enforce effectively. Not within our interest.
Any other questions, comments? If not, the seller wish to make a motion.
So either way, he gets to keep the building.
Yeah, I think you'd have two choices. You approve the conditional use permit, then he's allowed to use the building for rental. If you deny the conditional use permit, he's just allowed to use the building for personal use.
I'm not even seeing that he's applying to, it just as a garage. I mean, I know that that's what's been stated, but that's not what the permit isn't even asking for it to be used commercially.
Well, that's how it's being used. That's how it's being used, is commercial storage.
So the permit doesn't have to state what it's actually for, the conditional
Well,
use.
I'm guessing,
I just don't think the permit's accurate, or the, yeah.
No, it
Well-
was an addition to a commercial storage building, so.
he can't fill out people's permits for them, so.
Well, I know, but it's just in making a motion, we're not really approving the permit. The permit would have to be amended slightly, or we would
Well,
approve something different than what he's asking for.
but the public hearing notice,
Okay,
as it stated correctly.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point, Karen, but oftentimes people will put on building a garage for commercial storage, but the permit will be for a garage, you know.
Yeah.
That's just a semantical issue, I think.
so in the motion or in the wording of the condition, we would just state specifically whether or not it's commercial.
I think, for the discussion, I'll make a motion that I reluctantly am moving to approve the applicant's conditional use expansion into that. The rest of it remains as it was permitted in the past. The building's gonna remain, so the effect of additional surface area and all that is moved down.
Motion by Mr. Conroy. Wish to repeat your motion.
Just a motion to approve the conditional use permit request to buy the 24 by 24 expansion of commercial building.
Motion. For a second,
I'll second that.
from Mr. Hayden. Be a roll call vote. Mr. Sheminski,
No.
Mr. Blumberg,
No.
Ms. Anderson,
No.
Mr. Anderson,
No.
Mr. Conroy,
I made it, I'll vote yes.
Mr. Payton,
What did you say?
I made the motion, so I voted yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes. Motion
Failed,
has failed, yes.
so that's the personal use only. Okay with that too.
Next, You'll be notifying Mr. Bork by letter.
Yep.
Conditional use permit CUP 2314, Larrabee, dwelling in exclusive agricultural district. Larrabee,
Yeah.
I'm applying to redraw some lines you see on the map. At this point, I have a bit of acreage. Where I live, there's two public roads that go through my property, but it's all connected. There's 150 acres, something, in that part, or that area. There's a 1 acre lot, a 10 acre lot, a 26 acre lot, a 36 acre lot, a 37 point some acre lot, and a 39 point some acre lot. Now, my daughter sold her home and she wants to build at the farm, but I don't want her to be responsible for my foolishness, owning horses and cattle and donkeys and that stuff. If she bought the parcel 10 acres now, she would have to be liable for insurance reasons and stuff because that's where the animals are 100% of the time. It's all fenced, but they can, in the wintertime, so 7 months, 6 months out of the year, they're there. So what I'm applying for is to redraw that 10 acre parcel, change the lot lines so she's not gonna be responsible for the pump house and the barn and the insurance reasons. So basically, that's what I'm doing, is just trying to sell her 10 acres of land because she has brothers and sisters, and so she's gonna have to pay me something for it. Not much, but that's what I'm asking for. If I'm understanding it right, she could build on that 10 acre parcel as is, a second home, right, Jason?
Nope.
Nope, she couldn't? Okay.
You're actually here for the dwelling to be built in the exclusive A.
Yep.
Yep.
But I gotta draw the lines.
Yeah, moving the lines is part of that project, but
Now,
the big issue is the house in exclusive A.
so she's not liable for anything. So that's what it is. Any questions, I guess?
I think you're just reconfiguring it. You're just doing a reconfiguration of your land.
That parcel is a 10 and a 26 now, and it will be a 10 and 26 when it's over.
Just shuffling,
Just
moving it over.
moving it. No,
Good enough.
no.
We gotta someday talk about, maybe going to A4 instead of A.
My wife and I, we paid money back 20-some years ago from A2 to A, because we watched the county, I was on the county board, and we watched how everybody came in and, wanted to go to the next level down, and we did not want 5 acre lots.
No, I understand.
And so we paid good money back then to change it, so when my next generation takes over, they can go to 10 acres, not to 5 acres.
A4 is 20, just like.
Well, but we're resisting that.
I understand. I'm teasing you. We've known each
I
other for a long
know.
time.
And we know Craig Stein well. But,
10 acre parcel is one right on the road then, right?
yeah, you got a map there. It should show, it's,
Shows 10 acres goes down to the,
and really out of that 10 acres, there's probably only 6.5 acres high ground. The rest is underneath that water. It's not a meandered pond or lake or anything, so there's,
we'll probably
property underneath that's non-usable.
rename it the Larrabee Lake.
I appreciate if you don't do such a thing. My wife would never have a sign on the tree like everybody else does. She didn't want anybody to know where we live. I hate getting egged, I'm a town board chairman after many years here and stuff, and I have a few friends, more enemies. But as you all understand.
Yeah. Any other questions for the applicant? Jason, have any comments?
No, there was a letter in there from the town of Oak, right?
I'll move to approve.
You haven't had the public hearing yet.
Will she be able to,
Oh, you gotta do a public hearing.
be able to build on this then?
Right, that's what
That's what she's asked, that's what we're asking, approving, yep.
Yeah, there's a point is because exclusive ag to protect ag land requires this oversight to add it.
Yep, that's it.
If there's no other questions for the applicant, I'll open the public hearing. Is there any people who wish to make a comment? Please come forward.
Morning again, Don Hamilton, Town of Oakland. Again, I serve on the Oakland Land Use Planning Committee. We would recommend the committee give this a favorable consideration. The requested use is low-density rural residential housing for a family member. It preserves agriculture, and that is consistent and compliant with our comprehensive land use plan. That's exactly what the town would like to see for ag land. I too encourage my good friend, Mr. Larrabee, to maybe rezone it, but as he stated quite eloquently, they are resisting that. The size of the parcels, there's 150 acres of common ownership there. So there's plenty of land for the additional housing for a family member. And it is low-density rural residential housing is desired and preferred in the comprehensive plan. So with that being said, the CUP is compatible and consistent with the town comprehensive plan to protect ag from overdevelopment, and there are no locations with the issues. And with that, I would again recommend the committee give favorable consideration to this CUP. And for the record, I've never egged Mr. Larrabee's property, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Are there any other comments? I have no comments online, so I will close the public hearing at this time. Anybody, any committee members have any questions, comments?
Have we had any correspondence other than from the town?
No.
There are no other questions or comments. I wish to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, conditional use, CUP 23-14, Larrabee.
Motion by Ms. Anderson.
Do you want the two staff conditions included?
Oh, sorry. Yes, including, which are what, one, land use permit to be obtained for the new dwelling prior to construction, and two, follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity. Yes, please, thanks.
And that would include the checking of that unknown well there? Concerned about a well. Sanitary system.
Oh, the sewer system, yeah, that'll be resolved when they go to build the house.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That, she already paid, Ross Olander to come out and, do a soil sample, and they go down to 48 inches or whatever, two different spots. He said it would perk for a conventional 4-bedroom system. You know, kind of, you know where the corral is.
Oh, yeah.
And then to the northeast of that towards, you know, the pines there, is where they did the 2 holes. And, so that has already been visited.
That's just an automatic verification that was run there.
Well, I do have a system there, at the pump house, that is a 3-bedroom system from when, my wife's grandpa and grandma, Jake and Lulu, had the trailer house there. So there is a 3-bedroom system there that I still use with a 5-gallon pail in the pump house there. But that would be on another parcel now when I'm switching it.
We have a motion by Ms.
I'd like
Anderson,
to second Ms. Anderson's motion.
second by Mr. Blomberg. To approve the conditional use permit 2314. Mr. Sheminski.
Yes.
Mr. Blomberg.
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Payton.
Yes.
Mr. Conroy.
Yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes. Conditional use permits 2314 has been approved.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have conditional use permit CUP 2315. Northwestern Electric Company Solar Generation Facility and an F1.
Mr. Chairman, I feel the need to recuse myself in regards to this petition. I'm I own a fair amount of stock at Northwestern Electric, and I've been to just about every annual meeting since 1991, and I think it would be appropriate that I not be part of the discussion. So I would withdraw to the clerk's office.
You're excused, go to the clerk's office.
Thank you so much.
Now, who's here to give us some information on what the conditional use permit is for?
Hi, my name's Beth Esser. I'm with One Energy Renewables. We're working with Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company on this proposal. I have a handout here that I passed around this morning, which I do believe you all probably have electronically as well, but I was hoping to go through this presentation and then address some of the concerns that were raised last night at the town of Webb Lake as well. So, as I said, I'm with One Energy Renewables. We are a solar development company. I work in the Madison, Wisconsin office. We work on small utility scale solar projects, and we have developers, engineers, construction team, our legal team, our HR team, all in our Madison office. Our Midwest experience includes several projects in the Midwest. Majority of them are in Wisconsin. We work with a lot of Dairyland Power Cooperative members on projects that serve their members, and then we also work with some investor-owned utilities in the state. So we have 31 projects in Wisconsin. 15 of those have been constructed and are operating, and 16 of them are being constructed this year. Next slide. A lot of people wonder why solar is being built in Wisconsin. This is kind of a messy slide, but the majority, or the main point that I want to make is that the economics of solar generation have come down dramatically, making this a cost-effective choice for utilities, and that's why we are seeing utilities choose this for new generation all across the Midwest. In 2009, 36 cents a kilowatt hour was the price of solar, and now in 2021, it's 3.6 cents per kilowatt hour. And this is an unsubsidized look at what solar costs. On the next slide, that's just showing the difference of solar to cost in comparison to other generation sources. So you can see in the yellow circle that utility scale solar projects are the cheapest new generation source, along with onshore wind. Again, this is unsubsidized comparison of costs. Somebody asked last night about rooftop solar. That is quite a bit more expensive in installation and also doesn't have the efficiency of a ground-mounted solar project such as this project that we're proposing. I'll get into that a little bit later. We use bifacial panels and single axis tracking, which produces more power than rooftop solar. Next slide. So when we're talking about site selection criteria, in this case, the primary driver of this project has been Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company's desire to meet Webb Lake's summer peak demand. And so they took a look at their existing substations, realized that there was a need at Webb Lake to meet that high peak demand in the summertime especially. And that led us, that's the existing electrical infrastructure criteria. The other criteria we look at then is available land, and Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company owns the parcel, 40-acre parcel of land next to the existing Webb Lake substation. This land had previously been harvested for paper, is my understanding. Last time it being harvested was 2012. So then the third criteria that we're looking at is site suitability for solar. We're looking for relatively flat topography. We're looking for land that's outside of floodplains and wetlands. And then we're also looking for soil characteristics that will allow the steel piles that the solar panels are mounted on to be able to be driven into the ground approximately 8 to 10 feet. So here at the Webb Lake but next to the Webb Lake next to the Webb Lake substation is suitable land for solar. It's available, and it is near that existing electrical infrastructure. The next slide, which may not be in your electronic packet, but was something that Northwestern Wisconsin Electric provided, is just to show the meters or the area that Webb Lake substation serves includes the communities of Webb Lake, Scott, Jackson, and Swift, but the primary number of meters being served are for Webb Lake. Next slide. Just wanted to show a little bit more about the components of a solar project such as this. So we use, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, bifacial panels. That means that they're glass on the front and the back. This is something relatively new in the last few years. It allows the sun to be absorbed from both sides, and in climates like Wisconsin, where we have snow on the ground for part of the year, this has really been beneficial for that albedo effect of the snow reflecting on the backside of the panel to increase production. Also, instead of solar panels being mounted in a fixed tilt southerly direction, which is often what a rooftop solar installation looks like, we have these projects on single axis tracking systems. So the rows of solar panels are built in a north-south direction, and on top of the steel piles is a torque tube that actually moves throughout the day from east to west to track the sun. So the bifacial panels and that single axis tracking has increased production of solar panels in the range of 20 to 22%. So those are the main components that the steel or the steel piles are driven into the ground with a reveal height of about 5 feet. The torque tube is placed on top of that, and then the modules, solar panel modules, are mounted on top of that. And at their steepest angle, they're about 8 feet tall. Per National Electric Code, we need to enclose the project with a fence. We use what we call wildlife-friendly fence so that small wildlife can traverse through the project area. And it is usually with wood or steel poles that we have it mounted on. No barbed wire or chain link. Next slide. Other main components of the solar project include inverters and transformer. So there will be 10 inverters. They convert the DC direct current power that's produced by the solar panels to alternating current, which is what we use in our homes and businesses. And then one transformer will be on the project, and that is mounted on a cement pad there. That steps up the voltage. I'm sure many of you have seen transformers around the community already. It just steps up the voltage of the solar project to match the voltage of the existing distribution line there. And then finally, we look at the vegetation of the project. So typically we plant a perennial pollinator mix throughout the project. We do have some of our projects that are grazed by sheep. That really depends on the availability of a farmer in the area who would be interested in doing such a thing. Next slide. So this is, and you do have a larger handout of the layout of the project. But basically, as I said, this parcel is a 40-acre parcel owned by Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company. The proposed project is just on 14 acres of that parcel, and it would, just have panels on both sides of an access road that would come down the middle. That access road is right to where the transformer is located in the middle, and then there's inverters located throughout the panels. There's 10 of them, so 5 on each side. The project is proposed to produce 2.5 megawatts of power, which is going to produce enough power for approximately 645 average Wisconsin homes. Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company has a history of renewables. They were the first Burnett County renewable generation approved project in 1921 with the Danbury Dam. And they also have wind in their generation mix now through a project that they purchased wind energy from Minnesota. So these projects do bring local benefits. For this, as I said, the primary driver for this project is to meet the high peak demands of the Webb Lake community and that Webb Lake substation. So it will help to offset that capacity that they need to meet and bring stable prices in a long-term power purchase agreement. It also, these types of projects also help to contribute to grid resiliency and reliability. I have highlighted a story of a community in Florida that had been hit by Hurricane Ian a year ago, who had a project like this plus solar on people's homes, which helped them to remain powered throughout Hurricane Ian, even though approximately 2 million people around them had lost power. The last slide here is just showing pictures of our efforts to educate the community about these projects. If interested, we give tours to local high school science classes usually is who's interested. We also just last week gave a tour of a project that's under construction in Fond du Lac to a 4-H group there. And, you know, any community group that would be interested, we'd be happy to give a tour of the project too. So I also just want to address a little bit of the information last night that we talked about at the Town of Webb Lake meeting. So first I wanted to just clarify in the resolution, I believe it may say that there was no notification given to the township about this project. I did notify the township on July 10th with a phone call to the town clerk to let her know that I had contacted the county. After we find out a project has a commercial pathway, we always reach out to the county to find out what the permitting process for a project is, because there's no uniform process in the state of Wisconsin for permitting these types of projects. So we just reach out to see what is the process and talk to Jason. He informed me that the decision would be with the county and to apply for a conditional use permit application. But being that it was in the town of Webb Lake, we also reached out to with a phone call to the town clerk, and then also an email follow-up from that phone call with information about the project to let them know that here's our information, here's what we're proposing. If you have any questions, please do reach out. So I really appreciate last night that we were able to present to the township at their town board meeting. Last night, a big question that came up was about fire risk, and I want to address that first by saying that fire risk on solar projects is extremely low. One of the concerns brought up was about batteries. I want to say that we have no plans to have a battery storage unit connected to this solar project. This permit is only for solar, and it would not be for a battery. If we wanted to do that, we'd have to clarify that, add that, and apply for that separately. That is not something that we intend to do at all. We have not found that battery storage systems are an economical choice in the Midwest. They're exploring that in other parts of the country, but we haven't found on our size projects for that to be something we would want to do. So that was a major concern about fire, is the risk of batteries. But we have solar only. I want to say that none of our projects in the Midwest have ever experienced a fire. I would love to tell you that I can guarantee that, but of course we can't make any guarantees. So I want to say that prevention is the primary focus for our company in fire risk mitigation. That's using quality components and quality construction, and using maintenance and quality assurance and quality control to ensure that once the project, after it's been installed, is monitored and making sure that we are preventing any issues that could occur. We have to adhere to National Electric Code standards, and we also have electrical permits that we need to apply for and have inspections occur when we construct a project. Panels themselves are no more flammable than a brick. It's really where a risk would come in would be like at the inverter or transformer portion of the project. Those have quite a bit of aggregate around them. I talked with my team this morning to just find out a little bit more clarity on what is already proposed to be around those materials. So as I said, we had 10 inverters in this project. They all have aggregate to a 4-inch depth around them, 5 foot in front of them where the electrical components are, and then on the side and the back, a 1.5 foot area of aggregate. The transformer and switchboard, that's what's mounted on cement in the project. That will be centrally located right off of the access road. We actually can have that, have no vegetation around that at all. And that is a very wide area with aggregate that slopes away from that cement pad on all sides. Another concern had been about moisture in the components. All of our enclosures are rated NEMA 4X for outdoor use to help prevent that. And, you know, we would be happy to talk about, rather than, you know, a denial of a permit, we'd be happy to talk about conditions that would help the town of Webb Lake feel comfortable with this project proceeding. So, for example, Northwestern Wisconsin Electric and One Energy can commit to providing training for first responders. We can do a tour of the facility, show them all of the components, and talk about what to do in the case of any kind of electrical fire. We also would be happy to make sure we have adequate access road and clearance for emergency vehicles. We can maintain a path around the entire perimeter of the project for that to happen. And, you know, we would be happy to look at providing our maintenance logs to the township so that they can see what is being done, and noting that, you know, we've been out there. The maintenance involved is thermal imaging on all components. The inverters are cleaned and a diagnostic is run on them. So there's quite a bit of making sure that these projects are well maintained. These projects have an investment, a very large upfront cost to them. And so it's in our best interest as well to make sure that there is no fire that would damage this project, because obviously for us to be able to make money on the project, it needs to be operating. So we don't want there to be any components, not even a fire, but not any components that aren't working. We want to make sure that it's running optimally. So that is part of why we invest in maintenance as we do. You know, there was some issue as well brought up about solar projects needing to be 1 to 2 miles from homes. I'm not aware of any requirement in the state of any ordinance at the Public Service Commission level or in any local ordinance that has that. It's actually common to see 150-foot setback from residents, but nothing more than that. These are the same types of equipment that is used on people's rooftops and commercial businesses. I have an image over here of a project that we did for a Dairyland Power Cooperative member, My Energy, which is located in, they have service territory in Minnesota and Iowa. And this is right by their headquarters that they put a solar project, and there's also a organic farm, vegetable farm that's right next to it. So these can be right near residences and homes and businesses. Let's see. There was also some question about decommissioning. Our agreement with the landowner, this case being Northwestern Wisconsin Electric, always requires us to remove all of the equipment at the end of the project life. So it is designed to be a 30 to 40-year project. Panels are warranted for 30 years. We expect them to be running at the end of the 30 years still at about 90%, so we could extend that to 40 years, and we design all of the other equipment, like the steel piles, to be a lifespan of 40 years. But regardless, at the end of that, all of this equipment can be removed. As I said, there's only one cement pad in the project. Everything else can be removed. There was some question also about property values. So the closest information that we have, there's been studies around the country, but the closest information that we have is Chisago County, Minnesota, which is home to several large utility scale solar projects. And the assessor there had said that he saw no difference in pre and post property sales next to solar projects. There was a robust study done in out of Rhode Island on property values and solar projects, which actually kind of showed that in some cases there was a small percentage decrease, and in some cases there was a small percentage increase. So what to make out of that? A lot of review of that has shown that it's less about the solar and more about the loss of green space, because a lot of these projects are done in more like Maryland and urban areas where there's less land available. So it's more about loss of green space. I do know that there is a project in Madison, outside of Madison in Fitchburg, that was made for MG&E, the utility that services that community. And it's a larger project. It's 20 megawatts on several hundreds of acres of land, and that has new homes being constructed right across the street from that project that are selling for $400,000 to $500,000. All right, I think that was what I wanted to share. If there are any questions from you all, I'd be happy to answer them. And I know there's several people here that want to talk.
Questions from the committee?
One, just in the limited amount of research I've been able to do, it sounds like these size projects need to be sited near existing infrastructure, substation, but that there's a cap on how much capacity can be done too, because of what the substation is capable of accepting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming in this case, this one would pretty much be as big as it's going to be at that particular substation, right?
Yeah, and I would invite John to also speak to that, but we do design our projects to serve the existing electrical infrastructure. So unlike some of the solar projects that are hundreds or thousands of acres where they're tying into transmission lines, and those projects often require a new substation to be built, these projects are meant to serve the existing electrical infrastructure without significant upgrades, because these projects wouldn't be economical if that were the case.
Other concerns? Hail will damage the panels.
Yeah, so panels are studied and tested to withstand a lot of weather. Heavy, big hail could potentially crack the glass. The glass, though, is tempered glass. It would be all enclosed within that. We have remote monitoring that we know when any inverter isn't producing the way it's supposed to, that it alerts us, and then we can come out and figure out what panel may be damaged and replace that panel. But having said that, our engineers do design these projects with snow load and wind speed in mind, and we also have sensors on these projects that can stow the panel in a position so that it is gonna be less susceptible to a windstorm that would be coming through, for example, and when it's gonna be snowing, they can stow the panel in like a tilted direction so that the snow is more likely to slide off of it.
I don't know which electrical has one north, on the north side of Rice Lake, but a month ago, they had Gulf side, like hail go through there. I don't know if it did any damage or not.
Yeah, I mean, our panels have withstood a lot of bad weather already, but like I said, we would be notified right away if there was anything that wasn't working right.
That's like maintenance,
General maintenance,
you know?
yeah.
You mean that's what that is, pretty much.
Yeah,
Panels can be removed.
yeah, yep. And we work with a company out of Minnesota called the Retrofit Companies. They do kind of a drive-through of the area of the state to pick up any panels that have been damaged, to recycle them.
Panels are all recyclable then?
So panels are made up 95% of recyclable materials. There's glass on both sides. It's an aluminum frame and silica sand in the wafers, and then copper wiring inside as well. The decommissioning estimates that we have completed for our other projects show that the salvage value of these projects is more than the cost to remove the projects up until at least about year 15.
Any other questions from the committee? If there are no other questions, I'll open the public hearing at this time.
Thank you for your time.
Anyone of the public wish to make statements?
Hi, Steve Austin, Webb Lake, Town Board Chairman. We passed a resolution last night that we're against this for the location that it's at. If there's such a thing as a density level in Webb Lake, that's where it is. There's quite a few houses and businesses right there, so we're concerned with the location, and we are concerned on the safety. And a little bit about time that we've had to study it, there have been fires. And if that fire gets away, and my fire chief's here and he'll talk about it, significant damage could be done. We think it could be in a better location, so that's the main thing, is the safety and the location. Somebody brought up, I didn't see the study, but the World Health Organization, they said is saying that people shouldn't be within like 1.5 miles of a solar farm for living. And I don't know more than that. We feel like we had such short notice on this. And my other question, I guess, to the members, can you build something commercially in an F1? Can you build something that's a commercial project in an F1 zone?
That's what they're here for, the conditional use permit for.
So the town, okay.
It says power generation facility.
Okay.
Is the conditional use permit.
So the town's certainly not in favor of that. And that's, we didn't call a special meeting. We actually had our normal meeting on Labor Day, so it was very packed in there. And, so this is where we're at. We're not against solar, we're against the location. Thank you.
I do know, I'll make a comment to Steve on that. I do know in your letter you stated the one should be down in Swiss. Well, that there has got, I think, a 3-acre parcel that Northwestern Electric owns. The rest is all county land, so it wouldn't be feasible there. Any other comments from the public?
George Costello, resident of town of Swiss. Over the weekend, I read an email from a resident of Webb Lake suggesting that Northwest Electric move the solar farm south of Highway 77 and CCC Road to an existing substation that's in Swiss Township. As a resident of Swiss, I'm against this, as the need for the additional seasonal power is required for Webb Lake. And as mentioned, the proposed land in Webb Lake is owned by Northwest Electric, and the county land is in that area of CCC and Lakes Drive. Therefore, solar should be located in Webb Lake Township, not in Swiss, as the Webb Lake resident noted. Thank you. My name is Mike Hemquist. I'm the Webb Lake Fire Chief. The DNR is listed Webb Lake Township as a very extreme high fire danger level with all the downed trees from the blowdown in 2011, then last winter with all the treetops snapping off. And this project is surrounding a very heavily wooded area. And I brought up last night, I says, what happens if a fire does start within the project? I was told to just let that fire go until it's either de-energized or it burns itself out. Fire departments are in the business of putting fires out, not to let fires go. Once this thing gets out, it's, as everybody knows, a couple of years ago when we had that 18-acre wildland fire, it premature did a whole Webb Lake County evacuation. That one, we had 2 aircraft come in and drop in solution, and we had all kinds of heavy units and all kinds of units from the DNR. We were able to contain that one, but that's how fast a fire can happen in the township of Webb Lake right now. Like I say, we are in the business of putting fires out, and I don't want to sit and watch a fire burn and all of a sudden cross over out of the project area and get into wildland, because like Steve said, it's right in the middle of downtown Webb Lake. And like you said too, it's the World Health Organization that recommends no population within 1.2 mile radius. So, and I've reached out to the International Association of Fire Chiefs about solar farms and other fire chiefs, fire districts, and there has been fires started by solar farms. The loose, bad connections, moisture getting in connections, battery storage units, which this one will not have a battery storage unit with lithium batteries, but still say they still energize and they can spark and start a fire. We all know how fire danger is in the springtime around here. That's our busiest time of year. And we don't need to have any more fire risks in the town of Webb Lake.
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
As fire chief, you also have fires from power lines. I mean, because I'm just wondering, I mean, it's like, are you gonna ban power lines?
No, that's just common knowledge. We get a storm coming through, we get called out. For those, we just stand by until the power company gets there. And I asked last night, I says, if we get a fire in this project area, how long is it gonna take for somebody to come out and de-energize it? I didn't get an answer. So it takes minutes for a fire to expand and take off if we got a wind with it.
Thanks.
Larry Peterson, 29348 West Green Pines Road. I just have 3 questions. Number 1, I see the setbacks, but I don't see a buffer of trees or vegetation separating the solar farm from the road. So maybe it's there. I couldn't find it in the documents. That's one of my questions. We know, I think loggers have to leave a buffer, if I remember correctly. Number 2 is this is a very volatile industry and it's very moving quickly. I'm concerned that after 40 years, one energy will be gone. So what is the guarantee that Northwest Electric then will take on the obligation to remove everything and return it to natural state? That's my question. Does the Northwest Electric then become responsible? Then number 3 is, I understand this is a temporary conditional use permit. So after 40 years, then it reverts back. At least those are my 3 questions. Thank you.
I'm Barry Kucharski. I live, I've been here 68 years, and my wife and I have a place half a mile adjacent to, just north of this area. Couple of things. These are very susceptible to fire. The Firewatch or Firetrace.com said there's 420 documented cases with these with unspecified equipment. And a lot of them are not specified and I've put under other, so their solar panel fires are not even on the list because of it puts under an other thing. There are 5,000 panels in a situation like this. one damaged spark, one arc makes a spark, can cause a fire. We have a situation in Webb Lake where these inverters, you just heard yourself, the inverters are gonna be on the ground. And we all know in the spring you get what's called fluff. And it's pine fluff, and also with the pollen. I looked it up last night. The DNR said the pine trees are the most flammable, we know that, in this area. Coincides, the pollen production coincides with the time of year when the risk of ground fires is, in the treetops, is the greatest. And this is that's Wisconsin DNR. And the airborne pollen can explode just like it explodes in a grain fire. July 27th, Lyme, New York, there was a major fire just this year. It took 4 days to put it out, and they put water on it at first, and that made it worse. The thing is, that was a battery fire. Just last Sunday, August 27th, a week ago Sunday, you can look this one up, Jamestown Solar Farm had 14 acres of panels, just like this one, no batteries, burned 60 acres. The California fire had the advantage there. They had 2 tanker planes, 2 helicopters, 13 fire engines. We have 1, and we're looking to try to buy a new one at Webb Lake, 2 hand crews, 2 bulldozers, 2 water tanks, multiple supervisors, and an observation plane. They're trying to find what the cause was. There are multiple causes in these, not just the batteries. The inverters operate at 285 degrees normally. They can go up to 350. A pine needle, depending on how dry it is, can ignite at 220 to 285 in that area. So the pine fluff is much more susceptible to fire. So this is just a fact. This has just happened the other day. This is in 2019. 1,127 acres were burned. A fire touched, a bird landed. And Zach Nichols, the fire battalion chief in Los Angeles, California, said 1 wing of the bird touches one wire, the other touches into a conductor, and they turn into a light bulb. He said they blow up. They said, how often does this happen, Mr. Nichols? Happens all the time. That's in the LA Times, June 2019. I'm asking you guys I think what we ought to do, the World Health Organization has a lot more, this is new to us here. They've got guidelines they've set down on what we should do. This is a residential area. We have people living within 50 feet of this thing, and they had no chance to escape. When we were gonna evacuate Webb Lake, like the fire chief said the other day, we still had 2 miles away we could get out. We saw the smoke coming. We also saw the fire that had occurred at 77 and the Namakagon River in 1980. At that time, the fire traveled to Highway E in 3 hours. They were evacuating Spooner. If it wasn't stopped there, Spooner was going to go. That was 16,000 acres. So I think the county needs to protect the county. It wouldn't be just Webb Lake. It could be Swiss. Damn, it goes so fast. We could, we're right in the heart of this thing. We have at least look at another location, because in that circle, if you draw the 1.2 miles, there are hundreds and hundreds of dwellings and population right there. So I'm asking you if I don't know what the best solution is, but you guys, we got to get this one right, because if we burn the whole place down, we got no one to pay the electric bills.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Morning, I'm Steve Pearson, Oakland Township. Good to be here with you today. As a person whose home is powered by 5,100 watts of on-site solar power, I wanted to dispel some myths that I've read in letters to the committee about solar generation. One of those myths had to do with the heat of the inverter and the possibility of fire. You can walk up to my inverter any time of day and put your hand on it for as long as you want, and you won't feel any heat. fires are extremely rare with any kind of solar installation, and the fire risk is far greater with the existing substation than it would be with the solar installation. One writer said it takes away wildlife habitat to clear all that land that is now forest. But as anyone who lives in the forest that adjoins an opening in the forest knows, where does the wildlife come? Well, they leave the forest and they come to the opening to find forage. Deer are the best example of that. Another letter writer talked about the high cost of solar, and Ms. Esser dispelled that by saying that solar is currently on par with or even lower than other forms of electrical installation, about 3.6 cents per kilowatt hour. The same writer said that solar production is not green, but if you know anything about solar, you know that it's primarily made from silicon. And silicon is the second most abundant element on Earth next to oxygen. So having said that, I do believe that consideration of the county's comprehensive land use plan and the corresponding town plan, if there is one, should be paramount here. As Jason noted, I think in his letter in the in his notation in the staff report, F1 land is not intended for commercial use. And so I'm sympathetic with residents who are living in an F1 district, and they may be counted on the land around them staying non-commercial into perpetuity. And now all of a sudden, here comes a fairly large commercial installation in their midst. And so I guess that, I think, should be a primary concern here. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Hi, I'm Peter Truitt, live in Oakland Township. I'm a retired engineer for, working in the Twin Cities to design electrical medical equipment, aviation equipment, and HVAC equipment. I worked with electrical engineers all the time. I'm not an electrical engineer, but I would help lay out electrical equipment. And you know, maybe the safest way to protect any area from fires is just not to use any electricity. But presently, we're bringing in very, very high voltage across many distances. And in order to get it here, it has to be at very, very high voltage. So there's a very high potential. Potential is the word in electricity when it comes to safety. And anytime you can reduce the electrical potential, you have some improvements in electrical safety. I look to the experts who are, in my career, found to be very concerned about electrical safety. I am familiar with NEMA requirements and know that the equipment that's being proposed is well within guidelines on that, goes through rigorous testing. Basically, we're going to be bringing electricity into the area. I would say the safest and the most economical way is to have it happen in the area. The economics stand on their own. At this point, we can see that the solar has been coming down. I can't imagine that there's really anything that can argue with that. But what has not been mentioned is that we have the potential to create more of a circular economy in the area, because people in the area can be trained to service this equipment, install it, take it out when it's gone, and move on with a more resilient situation where If the other parts of the country are having problems with power for whatever reason, we can still maintain our functionality and potentially help other parts of the country when they're in need. So distributing energy throughout the country is good for the country. Solar panels obviously are not produced in Burnett County, but they're starting to increase the production in the area. Mountain Iron, Minnesota has got a facility and they're increasing their production up there. So all that is moving a situation where Burnett County will have more control over what goes on, more resilience as things happen around the world. I don't mean to diminish the concern about fires. Anytime you have electrical equipment, or basically just bring more people into the area, yeah, you're going to have new concerns. And so it would be important for the committee to stay on top of that and make sure that the area is kept clean. The remote monitoring is perhaps even more aggressive than what you might find in some other areas. But all that is well within the possibility, well within our technological capabilities. Again, I'm Peter Truitt, and that's basically
Thank you very much.
it.
Go ahead. Stand back. Start to stand up.
Oh, sir, I'm just gonna, I just wanted to add, I'm sorry, I didn't to interrupt at all. The governor of New York, after the Lyme, New York fire on August 3rd, has adopted a commission to investigate. There was a rash of solar farm fires in New York, and they have a committee working on it to try to find solutions on how to put them out better, because they did not know how to put this one out. That, and then the renewables, according to the other site, the Renewable Energy Site 2019 did a study. By 2060, 90% of the recycled solar panels will only 10% will be recycled. 90% will be landfilled, and it's 9.8 million tons will be going to landfills because the cost to recycle is way too costly. That's all.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Steve Johnson, resident of Jackson Township. Just hearing everything today, I would just have a couple comments. One, part of Voyager and 3 of the townships, Scott, Webb Lake, and Jackson, are all part of a CWPP where we look at fire safety and do things in the community for it. I don't know if there's been any review from that committee about this solar panel, and I think there's some things that could be done to make it safe. So my recommendation would be to postpone this until there is a review of that. And I think there's also things that could be done aesthetically to make it softer so it doesn't come right out to the roads. And I think those two could work in conjunction to give something that's not going to impact the community visually and provide more safety. So I think that that should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wasn't going to speak today, but I feel compelled to speak. My name's Leslie Garrett. I live in Webb Lake. I have 40 acres of stones throw away from this proposed site, right at the intersection of Long Lake Road and Lake 26 Road. I'm also a full-time resident on Des Moines Lake in the Webb Lake area. So my concerns for this rezoning that's in front of you today is we heard about 30 to 40-year timeline life cycle for these panels, and we heard about a big cement slab underneath them, and we heard about recycling being not cost-effective after 15 years. So if the panels have a 30 to 40-year life cycle, and after 15 years, there's hardly any value in recycling, and then they fill the landfills, then that means most of us are not going to be here in 30 to 40 years to see what happens at that point in time, but our children and the future will have to deal with what's left behind. So Also, today's the first time I heard about the fencing going up around this property. And I drive by there, maybe every 2 days. I'm right by that property. Of course, my acreage undeveloped is right there. So I just encourage you in this committee, as you think about changing the zoning to allow the commercial activity to go on in that property. If I wanted to come in front of you to change my undeveloped 40 acres into something commercial, and I wanted 25% of it changed to commercial, would it be, like, consider what comes in front of you every time you have a meeting. When somebody wants to put a property in that houses campers on a certain lake, that's a hot topic here, when they want to zone it for commercial and then people don't want it. Do you approve that? Do you decline that? But I'm asking you to consider that as well. If a 1.5 mile circle around this Webb Lake area is where we should not be locating this property, is there areas that the paper company owns or electric company owns 1.5 miles around here that we could put this facility to serve the community and those that want solar? And if energy has to move to serve others that are in need, like has been mentioned, how far can this energy be transported to serve a community? And if this solar property serves 600 and some odd homes or dwellings at a time of high need, within 1.5 miles, how many do we have within that area? Maybe 600 and some odd dwellings, but is there a place other than where it's not currently allowed to do commercial business available for Northwest Electric to put this 13-acre, 14, 15-acre solar farm? So, and today is the first time I heard about sheep. If anybody has sheep that can graze this area, I just don't expect sheep to be running around in a 15-acre lot grazing underneath solar panels, but, so.
Thank you.
My name's Cheryl Gray. I live in Webb Lake. I work for Webb Lake at the recyclable center. And we had 2 days, we had probably 230 or 40 cars come into the recyclable center. And I asked them if they knew about, if they got the notice about this solar farm. 90% of them heard nothing. And I just feel like it was kind of getting like slid under the rug real quick. And this is going to be in my backyard. I live on Oriole Drive, and this is going to be in my backyard. And I do worry about property value. And I did ask her yesterday at the meeting about property value and insurance going up. She said there was no study. But today she said something different. So, and another thing is if there is a fire or something happens, what about water contamination? What about our wells? Noise. She said they shut them off at night, you know, so I don't have a clue about the noise. I'm really worried about the fire and the property value. And I'm really surprised that people in Webb Lake did not know anything about this, which I have an email that states Wisconsin Electric notified everybody, which they didn't. And I do have 5 pages of signatures that, a petition that went against, they do not want a solar farm. So I can hand them in if you want them, but this is in my backyard and I'm really worried about what would happen.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I think that,
State your name, please.
Andrew Koharski from Webb Lake, and I think that it would be really good if members of the panel could actually see the area where it's supposed to go and how thick the wood is and how thick the undergrowth is. And if it was allowed to burn out a small undergrowth fire before anybody could get there, the surrounding area there is thick, thick woods, and it could all go up in smoke before anyone could get to it. A different area would be a cleared area, a large open field, and there is one near Voyager Village that has their big barn on it, and then a big field around it. All the pictures that were showed yesterday at the town meeting showed a large cleared area around these solar farms. You know, they were open fields. and this one would have a small, narrow, swath around it, and a fire could jump over that. And you're the people that represent the people of Burnett County, and I think if you tabled this and saw the area yourself, and then made up your mind, you'd agree with all the people in Webb Lake and our fire department that it shouldn't be there. That's part of your job, to check it out and see who's really right about this. We don't want it in Webb Lake at all, because it's a residential area, and if a small undergrowth fire were allowed to burn all around the surrounding area there, this heavy, heavy woods, and the other people were right, that there's hundreds and hundreds of homes in the immediate area along Des Moines Lake and the town of Webb Lake itself. And the fire department mobilizes and does their very best to get out and take care of fires. And by the time they could get to it and have enough people there, that undergrowth could be burning and catch the forest on fire. That's what I want you to know, and ask you to take a look at it and table this, set it aside till you have a chance to really study it, because it's something new for our area. That's what I wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Good morning. My name is John Richards. I'm here representing Northwestern Wisconsin Electric. I just want to address a few points regarding this project. The first point would be the need for the project. Northwestern constantly monitors its load. We serve from basically St. Croix Falls area all the way up to Hillside. Most of you know that area. It's the northern Polk area and most of Burnett County. And we constantly monitor our system, and we're looking at growth, and we're planning for growth. There was a specific area that since COVID and during COVID that grew to our astonishment, and that was the northern part of our system, specifically the Webb Lake, Oakland area, and north. What we did, it happened for about a 2-year period, and there were some issues with other utilities in the area regarding voltage support and those types of things. The first year, we handled it. We moved some load around. We have a transmission system that we operate, and we were able to shift some load around and mitigate the effects of it. But we worked all that July 4th weekend to do it. After that, we started planning to first of all figure out how the load grew and by how much, and how to mitigate that. We doubled the size of or the capacity of one of the substations near Danbury. In the next year, we built additional circuits out of that substation, and we did the same thing. We built additional circuits out of the Webb Lake sub to try to distribute the load and accommodate the load. And as part of our normal transmission system, we have one little piece of 34 kV transmission that's still out there. Most of our transmission system that we supply our subs and some of Polk Burnett subs with is at 69 kV. There's one little piece that runs from the Lake 26 substation, which is on Lakes Drive. That sub's been referred to. It's not a load serving sub. It's a transmission sub only. So we have one piece of 34 kV that runs from there to the Webb Lake sub. We've been planning for some time to convert that one last piece to 69 kV. That's to help mitigate some of this growth. So we're going to use that tool. That line is already there. We're going to be building on the majority of existing right-of-way. We are moving it across County Road H to work with some of the homeowners to get it and to be able to broaden the right-of-way to accommodate fire issues and clearance issues and that sort of thing, and get it up to today's specs. So we've been using many tools in our bag to try to deal with this growth. In looking at the type of growth it is, it's very, very sharp peaks that occur during these holiday summer weekends, and then it goes away. it's the summer weekends. And so one of the tools in that bag for utilities is solar generation. It's there when you need it. It's there when these peaks occur during these hot summer weekends, when we all know the population of Burnett County, used to say it doubles. I think it's more than that in the summer. And we see it in our load. But the sun's usually shining. You look at just this previous weekend, the sun is shining, that generation's available. I personally am at home with my family, watching my phone, looking at the Webb Lake substation and looking at that load, wondering if we're going to be okay. And we are. The transformer that's there and the infrastructure that there is handling that, but I'm always amazed at how sharp that peak is, and then it just goes away. So then you have the challenge as a utility. Do you want to build up your infrastructure in all the ways possible, bring those costs up, and have the existing residents bear those costs all year long when the load isn't there? Or do you do some of that and then implement a technology that's readily available, like solar energy, that can be there to help you mitigate that peak? So that's one reason we're looking at solar energy. The other reason is Northwestern has been out front with its renewables implementation program. We bought 15% of a wind project over in Minnesota, did that several years ago. We have 2 hydro units in the county. One was built in 1921, one was built in 1945. They are about the size of this facility. They're about 2,500 kilowatts. So they're the same size as this solar project. Those, in 1921, the first one was built. They talk about whether or not we're going to be around. We don't own those facilities, but we're still buying that energy. And we're using it to our renewable portfolio. So we're at about 19% this last year. We go from about 19 to 23% renewables as part of our system mix. So that's another reason. The other reason is that energy is available when utilities are subject to peak power costs, as was shown this last weekend, and during the week, probably today. We become price takers in the market. Solar energy allows you to mitigate those costs, fix those costs, and not be subject to those peaker prices that are out there. So from a perspective of providing reliable, efficient, and cost-effective energy to our customers, this project makes a lot of sense. When you talk about location, yes, we own that land. Northwestern serendipitously bought that land. Had to buy all of it because we had 1 acre there on a 99-year lease with the paper company. We knew we needed more property there for buffers, for fencing, for expansion, and we asked the paper company for it, and they said, no, it's in the MFL program, it's clear cut on a regular schedule. And we waited, and in 2017, we bought that land when it came out of the MFL program. It had been clear cut in 2012 and every other cycle before that. So that land has been used for renewables since before this time. Those trees were growing on that property, clear cut, grown again, and clear cut. So it came to us in that, so then we had to buy the whole piece. We couldn't buy 5 acres, they wouldn't let us. We couldn't buy 10 acres, they wouldn't let us, so we bought the whole piece. And when this opportunity came up and we were looking at mitigation and looking at our system growth, this made perfect sense for this substation because it's located near a substation, a distribution substation that can help offset. It offsets about half of the peak capacity of that sub. And Northwestern happened to own the land. And so it's just location-wise, it makes perfect sense. We had been looking at solar energy because utilities generally, for the other reasons I described, have. But this came to us and we had talked to One Energy several years ago, came back to the idea and talked to One Energy again. We liked One Energy. They're a very small company. They're there when we call the answer, we talk to the principals. They're working currently with our neighbor Polk Burnett, they're gonna be building their second, or they're looking at possibly a second facility. So they're here, and they're working with us, utilities in the area. So it made sense for us to partner with them. I wanted to address a couple other things. We had an incident with the county, I think it was last year, when a trackle from the county came in contact with one of our three-phase lines. It was an unfortunate incident, and it was a potentially dangerous incident that afterwards we partnered with the county and we took a safety meeting, and we took our third-party safety instructor, brought him to the county and trained on what happened and how we can prevent it in the future. We did the same thing with the industrial customer that it affected. We would look forward to doing that in this arena. We would look forward to working with the local fire department and bringing in our independent trainer, our lineman. We have a 5-man crew that works directly out of Danbury. We would bring all of our crews in, and we would train with the fire department, and we'd look at this facility on access and how to deal with the relevant issues. I would welcome that, and we work with One Energy to get that done as well. I think that would be prudent, and it sounds like there's maybe some opportunity here for the whole industry to do this. But I will say that in an electric fire, in general, as a power company, when we talk to the fire departments, and we do travel around and talk to them, we ask them, if you've got a substation fire or an electric fire, please let us de-energize it, make it safe, and then work the fire. And we want that scene safe to be the paramount. Safety is our corporate goal. I do think that Beth and One Energy is planning a buffer around this facility in terms of the site. They're going to leave a tree buffer around the facility. That issue was brought up. I'm looking for some other issues that maybe were brought up, but yeah, I think I've covered pretty much everything in my notes. In closing, one other point I did want to make. Steve spoke. We have approximately 100 customers that have generation either on their home or near their home. Same technology, smaller scale. A solar panel is a solar panel, and an inverter is an inverter. Those 100 customers generate about 700 kilowatts worth of peaking capacity on our system. And we have not had any issues with those customers in terms of fires, or we haven't heard any issues. Some do have battery storage, some do not. But we do have a net metering system that we buy back from customers when they generate. But in closing, it's our job as a power producer in the area to provide a safe, reliable, efficient, and cost-effective system to our customers. This is one tool that we're proposing to use in this instance on this piece of property because it makes sense. Thank you. Any questions for me directly?
Just to clarify, but I think you said that the ability, and this is not specific to this project, we're talking about more generally, but to address the increased demand that we see in Burnett County that's going to only continue to grow. The only production that's really realistic for us here is probably solar. Otherwise, if we don't took solar off the table, you'd be having to increase capacity at a greater expense. Not, it wouldn't be as specific to the peaks that we have.
Yeah, I know that there's been some wind studies done, but those are down in Polk County. I don't think there's anything promising for wind here. But to date, that's all. We do have some other capacity locally. We have peaking capacity, in diesel generators that is called on by the Midwest Independent System Operator. We have those units in Grantsburg, and we used them last winter. There was a regional system emergency on the 23rd of December, and we ran those units with success. But they are only peaking capacity. We do have customers that are on interruptible rates that we call on to generate, but they're using diesel to do that. Diesel, or you could use gas as well. But to my knowledge, that's all that's available.
We're not building any more dams, we know that.
Probably won't build any more dams. We have one dam in Danbury, as you know, and one on the Clam River off of County Road F. Those are owned by a company called Renewable World Energies, and we buy 100% of the offtake. And like I said, the capacity of those units is to 2,500 kilowatts, and that's what we're looking at here. Any other questions? Thank you.
If there are no other public comments, I'll close the public comment period. Does the committee have any questions or?
Quite a few, actually. Speaking only for myself right now, I'm not prepared to either approve or deny this today. In my opinion, what I think I would like to see is the applicant address some of these issues and offer us conditions that we could impose on the conditional use permit should we approve it. The reason I say that is I'm not going to be able to write these conditions myself today, right? Nor is anyone else. We're not enough familiar with it, but I think that the concern about fire is a legitimate concern. I think that, I get Webb Lake's position, but is Webb Lake prepared to require people that have their own units, remove them too as a safety hazard? They might be less certain that they're installed correctly and right a bunch of Norway pines out there somewhere. There's someone with a solar system that we have no certainty of that either. I think the point is we need more information as a committee, in my opinion. We often cook up conditions right here at the table, and we're not equipped to do that. So that would be my thought, is that here's what the concerns are. So what you could do to mitigate those concerns to the maximum extent, what extent you would offer it. Obviously, it would all be planted with low growth, probably prairie planting there, grass, that would have to be maintained, but you would be removing as much combustible as you could, other than the fact that grass might need to be cleaned up from time to time to not accumulate, right? But, I think that we need to have more definitive specs on those sort of things to consider this. My thoughts, not emotion.
I have a question for One Energy. Is there a time or ability to de-energize these panels?
So there are disconnects built into the project, yes. There's disconnect at the utility level between the substation and the project, and there's disconnects within the project at the inverter level and at the transformer level.
The item brought up was that, they don't want a fire department squirting water in there. And so if it's de-energized, then they'd be able to do that.
Well, and that's what John was saying, that is, it's not that we never would say to put out the fire, it's we want to make sure the scene is safe and that things are de-energized.
No different than electrical fire, you don't want to be squirting water on it either.
And so if a tree fell in the line that feeds that facility, out on County Road H, that facility would de-energize. And like I said, we'd love to train alongside the local fire department to look at those issues.
But the fire department can be there within 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes at the latest. How long would it take for somebody to get there to de-energize it so we can put the fire out?
I think we need to work together on that. It depends on where the crew is working that particular day.
They sat at a down power line on County Road H by Lumberjack for about 45 minutes one night, watching that thing burn a hole right straight down in the ground before the power company got out there to de-energize it. By the time they de-energized it, the DNR Minong Ranger was there. He was almost afraid to put water on that because he didn't know what was gonna happen. It was actually burning, melting the sand, going straight down.
That was a smart move on his part.
Yeah.
It was for safety for him and the others around him.
But it took that long, and all these lines have these fusible links, they don't always blow. Like I say, we sat and watched that thing burn a hole right in the ground for about half hour, 45 minutes. Okay, how long is it gonna take for him to get out there to de-energize the solar field?
These are the kind of things we're talking about, seeing what we can formalize in some kind of conditions that we can consider. Right now, all we're considering is opinions of both sides, which isn't something we can use as a document. And I ought to add, should have right away, we're hearing a conditional use permit. Under state law, we have to have reasons to deny it that are documentable, or reasons to approve it that are documentable, right? Act 67, 2017. So it isn't just okay, we'll do it, approve. If we were going to approve it, we'd have to have a whole list of conditions that we would impose. But if we deny it, we also have to have that. We can't deny it because a lot of people showed up who were opposed. That is not grounds under the law anymore. Understand that. That's why I think we need a proposal of conditions that we could consider, and we can debate again. We'll just have to continue this, I think.
I'm prepared to make a motion, but I'm wondering what a reasonable time frame would be to postpone this to, the October meeting or November.
I'm thinking November maybe because of the amount of stuff that we might need to do, but what do you folks think?
We would be happy to be able to work on conditions and come to the October meeting.
Safety issues, do we want to specify some, you heard the concerns, and there were some questions about.
I'll read my list and
Okay.
and it remains open to add to it by everybody else.
Okay.
Not a motion yet. I would say time to de-energize, buffer, the fire concerns about, mitigation around the site, to the extent possible. The extent of remote monitoring you can do, that might be above and beyond normal in a less fire-prone area. The fire safety review between the 3 fire departments, I think, was a good idea. The mutual aid of Jackson, I'm in Jackson, Red Lake and Scott. And is there any noise on these things rotating? What extent is that? How loud are they when they're tracking the sun? I can't imagine 14 acres would be too noisy, but we need to know that. Public hearing's closed, we're not taking any more.
The other question would be, one of the people brought it up about sheep grazing there. Is this how they planned on keeping the grass down?
We only do sheep grazing if there is a farmer in the area that's interested in.
This you're proposing here probably more of a pollinator prairie thing for wildlife, right?
I would just ask, the town of Webb Lake, is a month enough time?
I don't think so.
November?
Again, is there a possibility of a fire break around this? Because there's gonna be a road right around, right?
And it's kind of close to the 26 Lake Road, but to the south, it could be opened up more, I would think.
Our
plan for clearing vegetation was to clear the entire project area and then a buffer to the north and the south, leaving some vegetation for screening. And we can certainly make sure that, the outside of the fence would have like a compacted, grade.
If the fire trucks would have to get around to the other side.
One other thing we should maybe talk about is that screening might not be good if it's red pines and white pines. So it should be something more fire resistant trees, you know, deciduous maybe. Wouldn't be as much visual screening, but it would be more safe. I think those are the kind of things we need to have you address.
Anderson, you wish to make a
Yep, I will make a motion, that we postpone, a decision on this until or recommendation on this until the November land use meeting, with the stipulations.
The list that we all
The
put
list
together.
that we,
And
come together.
that's, I'm gonna interrupt, sorry, but that's those and, but not exclusively those, whatever else you want to address.
Well, and I think it's helpful, I mean, you heard the public comments, so if there's things that we didn't include, if those are addressed, I think it would help to satisfy questions we may have and that they may have, or concerns. So I think, you know, anything that was addressed, you know, the specifics that we said, and then, you know, if there's other things that, concerns that were expressed, anything you might have to add.
I'll second.
motion by Ms. Anderson.
Supervisor Anderson's motion.
Did you get all that?
Roll call vote. Mr. Sheminski.
Yes.
Ms. Bomberg is absent at the present time. Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Payton.
Yes.
Mr. Conrad. Yes. Mr. Bickford, yes. It will be postponed until November. Try and get, we can still use, information in October to talk about things. We don't have to make any decision then, but getting.
Can we have a discussion report on the agenda to further discuss this in October? In case we come up with some things, and then we still have another month to make recommendations.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda for discussion item.
Discussion item, but not a
Not a
hearing.
motion or not a public
It's a
hearing.
public meeting, but it will not be the.
Approval or denial, yeah.
Okay. We are done with the public hearing portion. Now we'll review and approve final plat Stillwater Bend addition to Voyager Village. I assume Howley's here.
They all have copies of the map, otherwise I have additional copies here if needed.
On the machine, yep.
Basically, it's exactly the same as what we proposed. We do have one snafu Jason brought up last Friday, and it should have been on the preliminary discussion, but it was not, unfortunately. And that is the fact about potential need for a public access. We were at the Town of Webb Lake meeting last night and had the same presentation as you all heard again, so I'm educated on that myself. Anyway, the Town of Webb Lake was not interested in a public access out there at all. I can wait for Brent to get seated. There is public access on Crystal Lake itself, to the north with previous plats. I do have copies of the plats from 1978 when they were first made. I'm assuming the township and the county and the state all had discussed this at that time. I don't have any record, or I don't think Jason does either. And so, as the crow flies, this plat is about a half mile from the lake. With the bends and bows on this lake, it's probably closer to 3,500 feet, which is state statute says a half mile from the public access. And so, that's where the conundrum is. If anybody's familiar out there, this is the back bay of Crystal Lake, and there was a snowmobile trail that went across that isthmus between there for many, many years, hiking trail, whatever, and in dry years, they're not connected. And so whether it's even a lake or part of Crystal Lake, high water, based on what the DNR rules say, high water is connected, but it is a slough basically with about 200 feet of vegetation around the edges, so there really isn't a good place to canoe or access there. And Voyager, has the only, they have put in are ready to put in the canoe access on the project we just worked on a few years ago, and are looking to have non-motorized, you know, there's a public access that's available for the town of Webb Lake to put in, but they have not built it yet. And so it's kind of, we're kind of stuck in the middle there. What do we do? And we don't really have a good option at this point in time. We need to contact the DNR and see about a waiver for that or not. The town of Webb Lake would support our request. We would hope the county would support the same request. We're still asking for approval based on what we find out about the public access issues.
I'm real familiar with where you're talking about. And that's absolutely reasonable. It's navigable in the sense that it meets the Supreme Court decision of Diana Hunt Club, 1916. But it isn't, no one's gonna launch a boat ever in that. It's a canoe maybe on the water side. So I think supporting that waiver would be a reasonable thing. Just as a bit of trivia, town of Jackson declined accepting a bunch of those public accesses. That came to light quite a few years ago now. Jason and I looked at that. They were shown on the record untaxed, but still held by one of Isaacson's companies. So to clean it up, the town signed the plans. They accepted them, but then they said, we don't want them, don't, you know, so I just fixed that so they have them now. But it was the same kind of thing. It was public accesses to Culbertson Creek, Culbertson Lake and North Lang, you know, which is maybe a canoeable creek, really. I mean, it was just meeting the statutory requirements. I think your solution you're proposing is fine.
If there's any questions. And our best viable other request is that we did put I'll hand this out. This is the canoe access area that we're talking about to the north of there. This would be our recommended solution if the DNR is not willing to work with us. It's just showing the road, the private drive that we're coming in there. Voyager has public access at the end of that. And, or if they have their access, that's where they're gonna put their canoe racks. It doesn't really show it, but the lake is at the end of the wider spot there. That's right where the point is. That's right where that snowmobile trail used to go across the isthmus there. And if Voyager would have that open for their patrons to be able to use that, there's an opportunity that we could possibly provide public access to that if it was needed at all. We're preferring not, but and it would be just a walk-in one again too. It would not be a ramp or anything like that.
The same possible thing on Culbertson Lake, you know, which has a public access off Railroad that's never been developed by the town, but there is a Voyager access and same kind of issue. Never has been an issue.
Right. And so this is the only thing else that we could really come up with is a reasonable thing that would not really alter the plat at all itself. And this would be right this road that comes in is right where the north corner of lot 1 of our map, or that road shows up on next to lot 12 on there, going on the west side on sheet 1 of the plat. So 12 is the adjoining portion of that property right next to the road there, so. And that's the best we could come up in this short time period or whatever, but that's basically what we would look at as an option if that was acceptable by the DNR too.
Considering the quote marks navigability of the water body in question, it's more of the theoretically navigable than meaningfully navigable. I think I'd be fine with making a motion to approve it subject to resolving this issue to the satisfaction of Webb Lake and Natural Resources.
I'll second.
motion, so Sally can get it.
This motion to approve the final approval of the plat subject to involving the public access waivers, or the alternative proposed major access approval by DNR in the town of Webley to withhold the access.
Yes.
Second by Mr. Anderson. Roll call vote. Schminsky.
Yes.
Mr. Blomberg.
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Payton.
Yes.
Mr. Conroy.
Yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes. That has been approved.
I'll give Jim a full copy. This is one you'll have to sign later on. We'd be back a month or whenever we get things taken care of, so.
Want me to sign it now?
No, that's not the original one, that's already recorded. I'll let you look it over if there's any questions or whatever, so. Basically just be paid.
Next, Land Services, Property Information Zoning Division reports.
Any questions, Mark, before you?
So the reports are in there. Staff reports, budget reports, nothing really too out of line. Revenue is down a little bit compared to last year. Sewer permits seem to be down a little bit. That's probably the biggest driver of that. Really nothing else in there budget-wise. Everything else is pretty much on track. And the website statistics are in there through the end of July. We're gonna be transitioning to a new website here soon, so I don't know what capabilities we'll have with that in the future, but, yeah, nothing too exciting. Moving along. Yes.
Any questions for Jason?
Minor question on Cypher.
If not, next meeting will be October 3rd. It'll be in the county boardroom.
Comfortable chair.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Anderson. I'll second it. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
I suppose you should take a page out of Dr. Seuss and do Anderson 1 and Anderson 2.
Weedy Branch Thursday, right?
Anything to do with going to
Well, I loaded the YouTube app.